If you want to get into adding more flavor to your food on your grill, charcoal is absolutely the way to go. And now while there are hundreds, if not thousands of different types of charcoal grills out there to choose from, whether you have a Wildfire 4-in-1 grill like this that has the ability to cook at super high temperatures like 1200 degrees, which may be a little too hot for many foods, but great for searing, or whether you have a normal Smoky Joe Weber kettle grill, or a Big Green Egg, or a Kamado Joe, or a Master-Built Gravity smoker. All of these grills add intense flavor to your foods using charcoal. I'll put links to a lot of different barbecue tools that I'm talking about in this video in the description below. You're welcome to check those out if you want to. But we're gonna get the boring stuff out of the way first, and that's safety. Like I said, I've recorded temperatures over 1200 degrees on this Wildfire grill, and that's because this uses air to blow over the coals and superheat the coals. Now, most charcoal grills don't have an air attachment that actually blows air over them, so you're gonna probably top out around 7, maybe 800 degrees, which is extremely, extremely hot. If you touch just a little bit, you're gonna blister, okay? Unless you got some really heat tolerant hands, okay? Now, gloves like these are great. They're cheap, but I promise you, if you're cooking with a cast iron pan over your hot coals and you grab the handle with one of these types of gloves, that little meaty part of your thumb in between your index finger and your thumb, yeah, you're gonna get burnt, and you're gonna get burnt bad with these kind of gloves. I'd recommend something more like a canvas glove. So take precautions, and please be careful when cooking with charcoal. Now let's talk about selecting the right kind of charcoal for your cook. There are charcoal briquettes and there is lump charcoal. Both of these types of charcoal have their benefits and their drawbacks. Most people are kind of drawn to lump charcoal. It's much more natural and it burns hotter, and in some cases burns a little bit more consistently. However, charcoal briquettes do get damn hot. And for some reason, charcoal briquettes have like a bad reputation of companies putting all sorts of unnatural additives so that they burn evenly and they catch on fire quickly. But there are many, many brands that make all natural briquettes that don't have any of those additives in them whatsoever. And I highly recommend you look those ones up. Just do a Google search for all natural charcoal briquettes and you'll find a bunch. This video isn't about any sort of sponsored charcoal company. In my opinion, many creators like myself give charcoal companies way too much free content. That's all I'll say on that. Maybe a concept for another video. And depending on the type of cook that you want to go with, if you're going hot and fast, I would definitely recommend a nice lump charcoal. If you want to do something more low and slow, now that is where I tend to go with an all-natural briquette and line them up in kind of like a snake pattern and let them just burn and catch as they go to have a nice, long, slow smoking cook. Now, that's what I recommend if you want to do something more on the low and slow side of things versus just real hot and fast, okay? And a snake pattern low and slow cook is honestly really dummy proof. The first time I ever did it was a success. The last time I did it was a success. It's so easy. You line them up in a domino kind of pattern and you light the front and you add different wood chips throughout to add a little smoke flavor as they burn through, okay? Starting your charcoal quickly and efficiently. Now I need to replace mine. This is old. I don't really use this much anymore, but this I have sitting here, so I'm gonna use this as a prop. Now this is a charcoal chimney. Get yourself one. You fill it up with your charcoal, you light it up from the bottom, and it catches very quickly, and it lights up the entire chimney full, and then you just add your other non-lit coals to your grill and dump your hot ones in, and then it will light the rest of them for you. And it'll do that in about 10 to 15 minutes. So very efficient and easy. You just kind of light them up. You can get those little all natural tumbleweed fire starters. I'm not sure how natural those really are, even though the advertising on the boxes say they are, but you do you grab whatever you want to light your charcoals with. I tend to just use the leftover paper bags from the grocery store. They're just regular old brown paper bags that were recycled, and I just throw them underneath the chimney, light them up, and they light my coals up lickety split. Also, when it comes to lighting your coals, give them time, okay? Now, while the chimney lights the coals very quickly, once you add the coals to your grill, the best thing to do is to close the lid, open all the air vents, and let those coals settle. Let them all gray over. So when you go to open your grill top, you should see all of those super hot coals with a nice gray cover to them. That is when it's time to cook. When you see them, like when they're on fire and they've got flames shooting off of them, that's really not the time to cook. They're way too hot. The temperature isn't settled and it's not consistent throughout your grill. And that's when you can really damage your food and burn your food way too quickly. So I'd recommend giving it another 5 to 10 minutes after you dump it in the grill and let let those coals really gray over, that's when you know it's time to cook. I know it's fun, but don't use lighter fluid. Lighter fluid adds a really nasty taste to your food. It adds, personally, I kind of love the way it smells, but that's neither here nor there. I love the way gas smells too. But just don't use that. Using a paper bag in a chimney is the way to go, I promise you. Now, there are other ways to light your charcoal once you get used to doing it this way. If you want to stand over your coals and use a superheated torch, you can do something like that as well. I have a propane one, and then I also have a electric one that you just stand there and it shucks the coals and it gets them superheated and ready to go pretty quickly for you. But in most cases, I use a chimney because while those coals are lighting on the chimney, I can go prep the rest of my food. Once your grill is ready to go and those coals are grayed over, shuffle the coals to one side. If you're a beginner and you're learning to cook with charcoal and you're just getting into how to sear and how to cook slow or things like that, if you're doing a steak or burgers or things like that, shuffle your coals to one half of the grill and leave no coals on the other half. You got a hot side and you've got a cold side. That way, if your steaks or your burgers really start to flame up, you can just swizzle your grate to the other side of the cold side and let those flames settle back down, okay? Because those fats and the grease from the burgers or the steaks or the chicken wings that you're cooking, they're going to hit the hot coals and flame up, like you probably saw in the thumbnail of this video. Come on, wind. I didn't put the dead cat on my microphone to muffle the wind. Now, in that thumbnail, what happened was I had cooked pizzas underneath the wildfire grill, and then I cooked about 60 chicken wings underneath the coals. So all that chicken wing grease was sitting in the grease pan underneath, and I didn't clean it out in between. Next tip. And then I threw steaks on, dry aged steaks. And then when I like to cook dry aged steaks, I cook them underneath the coals and get them nice and cooked about to like a really rare center, and then I move them up above the coals and finish them above the coals over the fire. And this kind of goes along with safety, but it's more along the lines of cooking as well. If you're cooking really greasy things, make sure if you've got a grease trap or anything on your grill that you clean that regularly before you put other foods on, because once that grease ignites, it can be very, very dangerous and it will flame up to the point where you could have an explosion on your hands. But just clean that grease trap out and you'll be just fine. You don't need to worry about what happened to me in that video. I was cooking too hot, too fast, too many things. But back to the hot and cold side. As you're getting used to cooking with charcoal, that's what I would recommend, is just to have a hot and cold side until you get used to how the heat of charcoal affects different foods. Another tip, especially for cooking burgers and steaks, especially steaks over charcoal, I never close the lid. Unless I'm doing a low and slow kind of reverse sear situation, I leave it open and I just let the flames do their work. I can get a more even cook with my steak, and it doesn't cook them too fast like an oven. What you'll be able to do with that hot and cold zone is as it gets too hot, then you can just move them like I said, but you're going to cook your steaks more evenly, and don't be afraid to flip as many times as you want to get the perfect sear. You see a lot of old school steak pictures and they've got those perfect grill marks, and quite honestly, if that's how you like your steak, you do you. But for me, I like a full covered sear as best as I can get it. When you get that caramelization across every bit of your steak, it's 100% more flavor than just the little crisscross patterns. For me, I'm 100% crust across the whole thing. That extra texture to the steak I really love, and that extra caramelization across the entire surface of the steak brings out so much more flavor that it will just blow your little mind. And like I said, don't be afraid to flip your steaks as many times as you need to in order to get that full coverage without burning your steak and continuing to get an even cook top to bottom. Now, what you don't want to do is squeeze it to death so that you squeeze out all those delicious juices. Moving on to controlling the temperature of your charcoal. Now, this is where it gets probably the most difficult, but it's not super difficult. If you think about it, all you're doing is controlling airflow. Opening and closing the dampers of your grill, that's all you're doing. Now, what you want to do is just keep an eye on your temperature gauge and just close your dampers a little bit at a time until you get used to how much your grill fluctuates with the closing of your dampers. Every grill operates differently. They all have their different little quirks, and that's what's great about learning how to grill on multiple different grills. But controlling the temperature on your grill is super easy once you get used to how your grill adjusts to the different airflow that you create by opening and closing the dampers. And that's all there is to it about controlling temperature. That's it. Just like anything else, it just takes practice. There are so many different kinds of meat thermometers. There are the handheld ones, there are the Bluetooth Wi-Fi ones. Honestly, do your own research on these, but I'd recommend a handheld one that is a fast read and it's waterproof. I can't tell you how many of the cheaper ones I've gone through because I went to wash them, got a little water on the wrong part of the meat thermometer, and it killed it. So spend the extra $5 to $8 and get the waterproof version of the fast read thermometers. I use the Thermopen ones. Those are great. They're tried and true. There are so many different Bluetooth and Wi-Fi ones like the meter probe. A lot of the different grills come with meat probes. The meter probe, to me, and my experiences with it, is way more finicky than it should be for how much it costs. If you like it, cool. I haven't had a really good experience with it, and that's just my experience. So I've had better experience with some cheaper ones. Govee actually makes a meat thermometer that comes with 4 probes, and it's only like 60 bucks. And that connects to Wi-Fi and has an app on your phone. It's just got a wire attached to it that connects to a box. No big deal. I've had much more success with that and accuracy with that than I ever have with the meter probe. But again, that's just my personal experience. Please do your own research. There are plenty of resources to go to on what's the best Bluetooth meat probe. On to enhancing flavor with charcoal. Now, one thing that I personally love to do when I cook with charcoal is add wood chips or wood chunks to add smoke flavor to the charcoal. Now, depending on what I'm cooking, I may add some more intense flavors like hickory or some more subdued flavors like pecan wood to add different sweetness levels and different smoke levels to my foods. So, and I'll do another video coming up soon on how to choose what different types of wood to go with your food. But definitely add that into your repertoire as you get used to cooking with charcoal and you get more practice. Throw some chunks of wood in, throw some wood chips. They're super cheap and they add tons of flavor. And especially if you're doing a snake pattern for a low and slow cook, the wood chips are great. They burn up nicely. They add a perfect amount of smoke. And you can use as many as you want throughout your snake pattern depending on how much smoke flavor you want in your food. Now lastly, just experiment and practice. The more you cook and the different types of foods that you cook with charcoal are going to expand your palate, expand your universe of flavor, and ooh, universe of flavor. I kind of like that. Universe of flavor. Don't be afraid to experiment with different recipes, different techniques. You can add different crazy things like a flambe d'eau to your repertoire as you get used to cooking with hot flames. Now, flambe d'eau is something pretty excessive, but a lot of fun and pretty show if you want to impress your guests. It is just a long medieval stick with a big metal cone on the end, and you get it ripping hot inside your coals, and then you drop some fat into it, and the fat lights on fire, and you baste your steaks or your food with fire and fat. Yeah, real thing, and it's amazing. But those are the different kinds of techniques and experiments and practices that you can deploy in your cooking universe. So just practice, just get out there and use it. Mess with controlling the temperatures, opening and closing the dampers, see how accurately your grill reacts to that. Different grills react different ways, and just be patient. Charcoal is not a super fast cooking experience. If you want that, just get a propane grill. If you want to cook your food as fast as possible, without any hassle, without much mess, just get yourself a propane grill. And that's one con to cooking with charcoal and pellets, to be honest with you, is they're messy, okay? You're going to get ash and dust, and it's gonna fly in your face, and when you clean it up, you're gonna get dirty clothes. Inevitably, I'm going to drop a raw charcoal chunk onto my shoes or onto my clothes. It just happens every single time, no matter what I do. That's just how I am. I'm messy. Now, I would love to know what kind of grill you guys have. Tell me in the comments section below if you have a Weber kettle grill, a Big Green Egg, a Kamado Joe, a Wildfire 4-in-1. I want to know. I want to talk about the kind of grills you guys have and your experiences with those grills, especially with controlling temperatures. I've cooked on many different types of charcoal grills, and I've got a video soon that I'm calling How to Choose the Right Grill for the Food That You Like to Cook. All of these different grills have different specialties, and they excel at many different things, but they excel in many different areas as well. So stay tuned for that video coming soon. So those are my basic tips for beginners trying to learn how to cook with charcoal. It's super easy, guys. I'm telling you, it just takes practice and it takes time. Give yourself the time to learn how to cook with it. Don't rush it and don't be afraid of it. It's just a heat source. As you can see, there are 100,000 different ways to cook with charcoal, to cook with fire, to cook with flames, and to just cook your food in general. Start simple. It just takes practice. And as always, I appreciate you. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.